your ideas. You're not trying to, whether it's canvassing or doing whatever for political candidates. Like, I feel like you kind of owe it to the world, at least a little bit. The idea that these guys, their minds run to the exact opposite direction, like, well, who am I? What could I possibly ever, like, what do you mean, who are you? Like, you guys are some of the most popular influences on the internet. What do you mean, who are you?
Wait, what? Hold on. There shouldn't be a blue screen. Why is there a blue screen? This is not live. Oh. Okay, it is live. Okay, it is live. Okay, it is live. Okay, it is live. Pop. Okay, it is live. Pop. What else? Damn, there was a... Oh shit, what the fuck was that? Oh, right. Okay, that's cool though that it comes out right there. There's something different. Just... Whatever, it's fine. Who am I to complain about it? There was a Jubilee video I wanted to see. I do, fuck it, I'll just see this.
Cashback is good, but double cashback is even better. Discover matches all the cashback you've earned at the end of your first year, which is cashback at its best.
Maybe it's supposed to put her up here.
Hey, Denver.
Can I ask you a question, though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders who are male, and typically I think
Good,
leadership...
that's a good thing. Women should not be in positions of extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera, because we're too emotional.
I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now.
Oh wait, but it doesn't show, right? Because I'm not capturing the window, I'm capturing just...
If you agree, step forward.
Interesting.
Women have more privileges today than men.
That's
I went back and forth on this one, thinking about the difference between more and different. I think women have distinctly different privileges than men have, but with this new feminist movement that is arising, more of the third, fourth wave, we are finding, I think, that women are placed and pedestalized above men in a lot of ways. There's affirmative action hiring and scholarships where women, sometimes even regardless of academic standing or achievement, are prioritized above men. But men also have different privileges that they get to access. I struggle to say more, but I think I do agree with the feminist movement now there is more.
If you are born into this life with a vagina, you inherently have 10 times more privilege than a man. From the time they are little, girls are always like doted on and you're so pretty and cute.
Very coddled.
They're coddled,
Yeah.
right? As they should be, you know?
Yeah.
We want that feminine, nurturing energy in them. You can kind of be a degenerate woman and have a hot body and be a millionaire on OnlyFans. Men don't have that privilege. Now, women don't have to like work to get a guy. They're just hot. And then guys come to them and spend their resources on them. A man has to prove himself. He has to build a body. He has to make money. He has to build influence. He has to become a protector, a provider. Women just have that naturally. by just.
I think one of the
having a
problems with the
That's why
red
it's
pill is that
because the feminist
these
movement has
fucking these
been
talking
all
points that
about
they have
women
are
acting
so.
like they don't
I'm not better way for me to
have
put this.
rights and
Talking points get
acting
so
like
tired out because they just get
have it
repeated over and over
pretty
again. There's
hard
like no
in the
new
modern day
talking
world.
point.
I can't think of a single thing
like it.
that I don't have that a guy has, or
That
you
they
know,
only have.
like,
I would say the
yet
one
they
thing I
only
would
have.
say is the safety thing. That's the only thing that I would say is that
Okay.
women are disadvantaged from, by nature, women are not as physically, I mean, you're physically strong, but as physically strong.
I'll take
I
it.
guess I can
Obviously,
understand that.
great biceps. And men and just
That's interesting. Okay.
are. And if
Whatever.
you're walking down a dark alley as a woman, you're gonna feel some type of way.
Yeah, the talking
sometimes,
points are
right?
so tired out. Same
There
thing
you
over
go.
and over again.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about
Oh no! Ooh,
like the judicial
I forgot. There's no way
system.
for me.
When
to
it comes
and there's no way
to,
for me.
let's say, domestic
Am I stuck? Am I
dispute,
fucked?
if a woman calls the police, they automatically show up, arrest the man. This
No.
Duluth model, I think is how you pronounce it. And that's already in
Should not
place.
ignore
It's
him.
not necessarily like a right or anything, but it's certainly in all of the police departments. Is that feminism is all about equality.
Oh, fuck.
Why would you
I don't-
automatically arrest a man?
I don't
When
think
they
it's
arrest
auto-
him,
I don't
his
think-
name is in the newspaper automatically.
I don't think it's happened too often that women are automatically assumed to be.
What skin in the game is there?
What the
And
fuck
there's
is
so
he
many
doing? What an
instances of that. I
asshole!
know men personally who have had.
I don't think it's really the case anymore that like mostly just women are like when police show up to a domestic abuse, the domestic dispute, that they're assuming the woman's like not the antagonizer there. But the thing is that the man's harder to. I mean, like obviously, like they're saying they're talking about like how like men are stronger, they gotta be stronger, all that shit. So like if they are, of course, naturally the innate habit, you can have the innate habit of thinking that you got to be more defensive against a man than a woman when it comes to a domestic dispute, because a man's supposed to be stronger and bigger, all that shit. So why wouldn't you like be more prepared to defend yourself or to arrest the man than you would the woman? Not that the woman isn't possibly, you know, the culprit, but you'd rather be in a position where you're more ready to defend yourself or arrest a man than a woman, because you could just adapt a lot more easier. I mean, if they're gonna, oh shit, oh fuck, let me get out of here. Ah, who the fuck is doing that? Get out of here. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that they want to be like, fuck, slightly sexist, but then not like allow some other level of sexism. It's like, okay, we're gonna have sexist perspectives. Might as well just commit to the idea.
Domestic violence within the relationship with children involved, unfortunately, and the woman attacked the man in front of the child, and he's still. I know 2 instances personally, and he's still fighting to get the child back. That's from the Me Too movement. Congratulations, you guys got that.
It kind of invalidates the women who do come forward and who
Correct.
have faced rape and sexual assault and all of that, because then it kind of turned into a Twitter hashtag where women were like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna do my legs. This seems fun. Like,
For clout.
it's not
it's
fun.
I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think the Me Too movement was inherently harmful. It's the Me Too movement when you
Right.
couple it with something like Believe All Women. That's when it
Yes.
becomes
Yeah.
an
And the
inherently harmful.
victimization
It
of women who
encouraged
aren't
people.
really victims.
The prompt is, do women have?
I mean, yeah, that's
similar
shitty, but-
privileges? We have privileges simply by virtue of being women.
No,
we have
yeah, that's
privileges
right.
from
It
affirmative
is
action.
shitty.
We
Oh,
have
fuck.
privileges in
What the
family court,
fuck?
and we have
God damn
privileges
it.
as far
Get
as
out of
being
here.
believed and forgiven. It's something that
I
should
do
be
not belong
acknowledged.
here.
That's correct.
Can I have the disagree a step forward?
I appreciated the distinction of more
Fuck.
versus different privileges. We can't just use a broad brush and paint the entire debate and say, all right, well, this is men have more than women, that's it. Like,
Oh, fuck.
Women must inherently then have more privileges. That's,
I don't know
that's
that
not
already
right.
heated.
And that's where we start to get into the idea of like intersectionality, where another woman who had a different experience, if it was a trans woman, if it was a woman of color, if it was
But
a
I
woman
don't
who
think we're
was,
including trans women into feminism.
and I
That's
think
a
we definitely
whole
should.
other- I don't
Like,
think we should at all. I think that trans women should not be a part of the feminist movement because a man, just because they, wake
That's
up and
spicy.
feel like they can be a woman one day, could come in and then suddenly know what it's like to have a period or know what it's like to have a child. It's anything from men replacing women in sports to men replacing women on podcasts during Women's Month, and when we're talking about women's health, or you've even got biological men who think they're women going to the White House speaking on behalf of all women.
I do have a question for you based on the prompt, though.
That's
because
spicy.
you've
That's a
lived
hot take.
in both experiences, at least socially. I'm curious, when you transitioned to male and people started perceiving you as male, like most people did today.
Oh, no.
What privileges changed for you, or what did you see enter your life that you didn't have before?
Yeah, and that's sort of where a lot of my beliefs in
Damn it.
feminism do lie, is because being
Right,
out
that's
into
it.
the world as a gay
I'm
woman
done.
was the way
I'm
I
beating
was
this guy's
raised.
ass.
Men treated me
Yeah, throw a bomb now,
not
bitch.
nearly as well as they did. I was bullied in school. I had people call me slurs, and it seemed like it was because I was threatening to like the male structure that we are in, where it's like male and
Yeah,
female.
okay, but,
because I was
like-
female who liked females, I was somehow infringing on that, and so they didn't.
Not
like
that
me.
it's not good.
Things
It's
change
bad
naturally
to be,
when
you know, to
socially
throw slurs at
transition and
anyone
are perceived
or
by the
like,
world in a different way.
be
When I
sexist and all that
transitioned
shit.
from
But
being
the
perceived
fact
as
that
female
you're
to the world
being
to just pretty much
targeted like
blending
that
full-time as
means
male was that I got a
like
lot
it's
more
normal,
respect
like you're normal.
from
Like people
other
got made
men.
fun of in
People
high school for
listened to
being
me,
gay,
took me
for being
seriously
black, for being
in a
Hispanic.
social
Like it happened to me.
setting.
Like people are just racist. Kids
People
suck.
aren't going to
Shit just
harass
happens.
women who are around me
But
if I'm
that-
walking with
that's
them at night.
kind of
It's
the
just a
norm,
benefit I never thought
standard.
about.
Not that that's okay, but like
Actually, so I say
The-
that yes, there are some privileges.
but to say that you want to be in a position where you're not getting targeted at all, thrown any floors at all,
I don't
like that's not. I mean, it is accepted, but
I
it's
get on
not standard to be accepted.
Well, they can get you for
Oh,
child
I'm
support,
not
which they
the
Are you
same.
do.
saying
Oh,
she
you
can't run
can
away?
go
to jail.
Are you saying
They
she
could take
can't
your
run away
money.
from the pregnancy?
But you could
But
actually
yes.
physically leave.
Leave.
I know what you're saying.
At the end of the day, like I don't see women having more privileges than men because we don't have the same. There's no way to objectively measure it.
Well, and in the scenario that you pointed out, I mean, if a woman was pregnant, she wouldn't be able
Oh,
to
fuck.
get an abortion
In
most
some
parts of
states,
the
now,
country.
yes. In some states,
That's
now.
That's a
absolutely
major
true as well.
disadvantage.
You can't get an
Corner case.
abortion, but children can go get a gender change at 12 with a
Feels
parent
like you're
at
very
15
fixated on that.
without consent.
That's not
feels-
true.
it feels like you're very
as
fixated
someone who
on
went
that.
I know the laws as well.
I went through this.
I know, in some states you can, and in Thailand.
That
you
girl on the
can
road, she
get
fucking
your-
sucks. She's stupid as hell. But
Guys, it's less than
you know,
less
she
than
paid for a very
5%.
expensive body.
It
It's
so-
such a
doesn't
small.
matter.
It's such a small
Doesn't
subset
matter.
of the
But
But you
population.
can't. But you can't say that about. It does matter though. When you have a child, you're not a
That's
parent
between
yet.
the parent and the child.
Dude, can I ask you a question though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders.
Fuck! What the fuck? What are you doing?
Good, that's a good
Stop it!
thing.
I know it's
Well, he
weird
was-
coming
Oh my
from me, but I
God,
do
what the
wanna
fuck was
know.
that?
It doesn't bum you out that it's less likely for a woman to become president?
I don't feel bummed out because I know that if I want to pursue something that I want to do, I have every capability to do it in this country.
I don't feel bummed out. Women should not be in positions of extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera, because we're too emotional.
Her chick is fucking stupid. The other girl actually makes some
Men
sense.
can be impulsive.
I'm not saying that men can't be emotional.
Like we had a
Men are
president.
more
We had a president
logical.
who would literally just
And now
go
we
on
have a president
Twitter
whose
every
brain
day,
doesn't
every
work.
second.
Wait, one person so she can hear us.
To be logical and to be sound is not something defined by gender. It's just something defined by your own
The
psychology.
left and right brain, it
That's just
actually
false.
is though.
That's
That's
just
not
false.
false. It's not
Come on,
false.
man.
It
Come
is
on.
not
Really?
false.
I
Really?
know, your question about leadership, I think, is a very poignant question because a lot of people are asking that. Why don't we see more female presidents? Why don't we see more female CEOs or Fortune 500 companies? And again, it goes back to those gender differences. There will be women who will be exceptions to the generalized rule of what it means to be feminine, and those women you will see succeed in extreme leadership. But we should also discuss what the conditions of extreme leadership are. We're talking 80-hour work weeks, subscribing yourself to your career and nothing else.
Forgoing family,
and
children.
Psychologically and biologically, women tend to lean in the direction of not making those choices for themselves, while men are highly competitive, they are highly analytical, systematic, they're willing to put in that time and take extreme measures to gain career status.
Men and women are different, but like that doesn't mean you gotta be. Not that they.
Yes,
That's what feminism
but we
is about.
do,
It's
but
about-
Men and women are
If
biologically
I want to go
different,
own my own company, I can.
but they're still
Like I said in the
capable
beginning,
of
we've all agreed
mostly
that the
completely
beginning of
similar
feminism was
things.
going in the right
Humanizing
direction.
capable,
It was
for sure.
humanizing women.
It-
It was making
you know,
them equal
depends,
to
like,
men. It was giving
depending
us
on more than
equal
just your gender.
opportunities so that we
Oh.
can go vote, so that I can go get a job,
Oh,
so that
oh,
I
God.
can drive a car.
You default to
there's
different
other
opinions,
countries
different things,
that
different
I know
habits.
that we
Like
weren't talking about
you
other
are a
countries,
different
but
person.
if you
Gender
want to
is
talk
one of
about
those things that
feminism,
dictates
go
like
protect the women who get beat up
what
for
you
driving
would
a car
default to,
and other
but not. You're not
Men
tied to
are
that.
falling
You
behind
know,
in society.
like to say that men are naturally leaders and women aren't. That's not true. And even if it was, like you can still break out of that. That's not something that you're like genetically
to
bound
be on
to.
this panel with you to see this masculine
It's not stuck
energy.
in you.
However,
Like
I
it's
know
not a
that
gene. There's not
men
a
are not
leader
able to be
gene
men
going.
anymore. Because of the feminist, modern feminist propaganda. I coach men in my practice, and they tell me, like, I don't even know what I can do on a date anymore. Can I ask a woman out? Am I gonna get in trouble for this now? Like, I really like her. I kind of want to put my hand around her waist, but
Titties are huge.
maybe that's gonna, I'm gonna be all over social media, this kind of thing.
fuck.
And I think men don't have the balls anymore to just stand up and be a man, be dangerous.
What? I didn't even notice my health.
Fierce.
I want to respond to a lot of what you said.
Please.
Does anybody else want?
You make a really interesting point. However, I feel like a lot of the reasons why men can't actively express masculinity in a positive way is because of the patriarchal structures that we have. Part of where I'm coming from with this is I'm trans. So I was born female, now I present as male. I came out socially and medically transitioned at 18.
Okay.
The feminist movement is what helped me feel empowered enough to be who I am and
Okay.
be a man.
And no disrespect to your process, I know it's a very strenuous thing that you go through, but I see a woman still. I feel feminine energy from you.
That's all right. I
And
totally
so when you
respect
say
that.
you're a man, then it's like, I don't see that.
The way I think about it is more like
Fuck.
about individual
I died?
choice and individual freedom. And if I want to say that I have feminine energy and people view me as masculine or vice versa, then that's their problem. That's not my problem. And for me, that's what feminism is about giving people the choice to act in accordance with however the hell they want to.
But that's a
not
very
how
dangerous
feminism
society.
That's
to
not how
say.
feminism started, though. Yeah, we went from, wanting equal rights for women and equality for women, and now it's
Humanizing
kind of
women, right.
humanizing women,
Yes.
making it to where I think we all agree, women now are equal to men, and with like third and fourth wave feminism, especially fourth wave feminism, it's kind of turned into individuality, like you said.
It doesn't take a man to tell me how to be a man. It doesn't take a woman either. I can define myself as a man how I want to. I don't need somebody like Andrew Tate to be like, you're not a man, let you do this. I also don't need a woman to come up and be like, you're not a real man if you don't do this. And it's the same with femininity. I'm not going to tell you how to act. I don't think another woman should tell you how to do it either.
So what would you tell kids?
Yeah, like you have a daughter. Do
Yeah.
you really want to be guided by the ambiguous, define yourself as however you want to define yourself. And for her mind to be molded and shaped by men who, no disrespect, women who turn themselves into men and then turn themselves back and say there's a lot of dissatisfaction when the root of the problem wasn't the gender, it was everything else.
There's actually
Let's slow
very,
down, though.
very
I
low
feel like
I
rates
looked at the
of
percentages.
detransitioning, but
They're
that's
hot.
not
Percentages
internet.
That's also all my
And I ain't talking about this
Feels
fight.
like you're bundling a lot of ideas, which makes it hard to respond. But
Well,
I
because there's so much data to support
can you
these.
repeat what's the main question?
Do you
on
want
there?
your daughter's mind to be formed and shaped by a society that tells her it's okay to be masculine and to be a man, and that she doesn't need a man, and that it's better off for her to be alone and take a career first and not have children?
I think more likely than not that she'll probably follow a more conventional path. If my daughter grows up and she wants to dress like a boy, like great. If she, for whatever reason, is experiencing gender dysphoria, like we can navigate that together. But that to me doesn't scare me. And I would all the more want to live in a world that
I feel like that's sad because because my son, I encourage him. I say you are to be, and I really don't turn the backlash. You're supposed to be attracted to women, and I
Isn't that
tell
a lot
him,
of pressure?
and I no, and I ask him,
What
who
if
are
he-
you?
No!
Because
No,
white
I was so close. I didn't have anything to heal
and my
with, so I
son's
stopped.
African-American as
Oh,
well,
you-
is very
Oh my God,
frustrating
I'm
hard.
bitch
I
ass.
swear, I'm
Damn
sorry.
it.
you can.
It's very hard. Do you know this to be true?
Asking people or putting pressure on your son or putting
I
pressure
don't
on my daughter
pressure.
to not
I just tell him.
okay, but to not be their true self, if that's truly how they feel,
that's not
feels
their
like
true
that
self.
would
No,
be.
it's- they're
That's
not their
My
true
daughter wants
self.
to dress up like a boy, play
That's
with
this way
boy toys.
society has
My daughter,
influenced
my son wants to
everybody to be
dress up
like,
as a girl, do that shit.
And you say I
don't
can
care.
identify, I
Do
can
what you
be
want.
whatever I want.
I'll tell them
If I want
like
to
the
say
societal norms
I'm
are.
Beyonce today, I can now just be
But
Beyonce,
do you
right?
actually believe that?
Well, I do. I kind of feel like I don't think you
Can we
believe
talk
it.
about
You
the prompt
genuinely
question?
Yeah,
believe
let's go back
The
to
prompts
that.
about men falling
Here's
behind.
the other thing. Men are falling behind. Is it because of feminism or is there socioeconomic factors that we're not not looking at.
Well, how do we
because
define
well, no.
falling behind?
Let's
Yeah,
look,
what do you see as falling behind?
What's falling behind? So people in America, not just men, everybody is getting poor. This has nothing to do with
Well, that's
feminism.
not true.
No,
That's a mental state.
No,
That's
it's not
a
true.
mentality.
This is economic data. We are
I'm
falling
not getting
behind.
that.
Well, you can blame the president for that.
Okay,
And
back
the other
to the
thing
prompt.
is, what do you define as masculinity? It can be subjective
Tell
from
us,
culture to culture.
what do you define
I
masculinity
think masculinity is whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be this objective
How-
thing where it's like, oh, you're
Whatever you
masculine.
want
Like,
to. That's just
so it
not
could
true
be
either.
different from
Then,
our
then
society
it
to
has no
society.
meaning.
And
It's just
actually, in some
whatever you
countries,
want it
like,
to be.
Men who don't provide for their families or are not the sole provider are not seen
But
as
are we talking
masculine.
about other countries, or are we talking
There's
about
nothing
the
wrong
countries?
with
Actually, even here, there are people who will
acknowledging,
say that's
like,
emasculating for a man who has
norms
less money than
and
a
just
wife.
denying them.
appreciate everything
But like to
saying.
pretend
I do
that like
wanna
the definition
talk
of it
about
should be
when I heard the
completely
prompt
altered
and I
because you
heard
don't
that,
agree with it,
you know,
that's
thought
silly.
about men falling behind. I thought more like mental health, like suicide
Bitch.
is more
Oh,
common
we're
with
gonna
men.
go here.
Oh, no, no,
But
no!
it's true.
Fuck,
It's
okay.
like men
But it's such a
commit suicide
it's
at
such a
higher
cop
rates.
out. Like, I'm not saying mental health isn't an issue, but it is an issue, and obviously a lot of men are experiencing a lot of pressure.
Have you heard like the term death of despair?
Men are committing suicide more. Men are dying from alcohol-related illnesses more, and they're also dying from drug abuse and drug overdose.
Correct.
And that's an increasing trend in society. And then you
That's
see
it.
educational
It is
gaps.
No, there's no denying that. Like, young men are abandoning colleges at a rapid
It's a
rate.
lot of pressure to be a man.
They're also
Like,
far
but-
lonelier than women. And
Yeah, women are the
Am I overheated?
Hold on,
Oh my
can I
god, I'm
finish
dead.
my
God,
point?
damn.
Sorry. I'm like, don't let me lose my train of thought. They're abandoning colleges. Women make up, they enroll in college at a 60% rate. Women are earning more than men nowadays, right? So,
Actually,
Yeah,
okay.
women, no, that is
hold
true.
on.
we can get to the wage gap.
It's about enrollment. So are they
Let me
having other
heat
jobs?
up the oven
Yeah,
so I can
probably.
heat up my wings. Give me one second. It's been started.
Probably, but I'm saying like men are not going to these institutions. Why?
When you're saying lack of enrollment, there's more entrepreneurials in the entrepreneurial space than ever before in history. So I believe a lot of people are opting out of college, as we had, to pursue their ventures. So that could be part of the reason why the enrollment has
Well,
declined.
Can I just go
But
back to a point that
it's-
you said really quick?
Yeah,
Where
go
you
ahead.
talked about
Yeah.
like the mental health of men and how
Me?
the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stigmatization of men addressing their mental health.
Yeah.
What system are we in that
Sure.
makes it so that men have this big stigma around our mental health where we can't
Yeah.
talk about it and the suicide rate goes
So
up?
I'll
We
talk-
are in a patriarchal system.
No,
Hold on,
that's-
let me
That
tell you.
is
Let me
the-
tell you.
Those
So
are
the
those are
way
the bounds we are within.
there's a lot
That's
of
toxic masculinity.
Mason complete his point. I'll encourage you to let the other person finish the point, and then of course you can take it forward, but let them talk.
Just
Same
real quick.
thing.
Systemic structures we are in are patriarchy. That is what has caused men to have this massive stigma
You see me?
around
So
mental
much.
health,
Sure.
where we don't feel empowered to reach out. Men tend to not go to therapy. That leads to suicide. That leads to all of these big things. That's not caused by feminism. That was happening well before the
So,
feminist movement
hold on.
came into these
Let
new
him
waves.
finish. There's a
Oh.
lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, and economists, professors, all these people coming out saying that the actual psychology department is feminist. I know.
No, I'm
it's-
processing what you're saying.
The psychology
It's weird, but the
department?
way that everything's processed is for women. So women and men process information differently. Men are like this in their brain. Women are. It's all over. And like, what the hell does that mean?
Well, it's
It
left
means
brain, right
that
brain.
When you
I wish it was
process
that
like
simple.
men need to solve the problem
Correct.
before they can process the emotion.
Women are
Women
emotional.
react
My
on
wing
emotion.
woman.
Yeah,
all the
that's
time.
it.
But so women have a tendency, not a tendency, they do better with talk therapy.
Fuck, this conversation
That doesn't
making my
always
brain
work
feel
for
smooth.
men.
Oh.
Men do better when they are kind of working with a coach or somebody that's going to be like, this is what you have to do, and then come
Like
back
massive
see how you
action
did.
That's why mentors
So-
work. That's why men need.
He had
So-
a thought though. Can we let
Yeah.
him finish his thought?
Same, the
fine.
same problems with the military, a lot of the suicide rate. Even though there is therapy services, they're actually actively discouraged. And it's because of this
Oh, fuck.
masculinity in the military, because it is still, even to this day, a very ultra masculine institution. And there's these negative energies saying like, hey, no, you shouldn't like go talk. That's what these people do.
But that's
But-
toxic
Well, it's
masculinity.
interesting
Yes,
Well,
but it
That's
comes
not
from
patriarchy.
it comes from a
There's
place
a
of
difference.
no, it comes from a place where it's like, oh, that's not what men do. Just suck it up and push on, and that's why a lot of these guys end up killing themselves.
But what branch were you in? Can I ask?
I was in the army. I
Okay.
was,
So you're an athlete, correct? And in the military, what is in the military that makes everything work within the military? It's a structure, right?
yes, it's a structure.
It's a system, right? Who runs the military? Who is at the very top of the command?
well, the commander in chief, the
Correct.
president of the United States. A couple
But,
hundred
but,
years.
but I'm making a point here. So there's one person at the very top. Even if you take the commander in chief away, there's your general, right? And there's lieutenant general, there's corporal, and I forget the, don't hate me, there's all those privates, etc. There's a system. One person is at the top
Oh,
of that system.
fuck, I keep falling
and
for
he
that
has
one.
supporting members underneath him, all the way down to private. And that's what patriarchy was, quote, patriarchy was designed. It's a system of one person taking a leadership position, and they make decisions for the greater good, utilitarianism of all, meaning the family unit.
That's not really what
That-
patriarchy
And
means.
actually,
Yes, yes.
It is. I looked up the definition.
What the fuck?
actually.
That's actually a very.
I
I-
literally
What the
looked
fuck
it up
was that?
yesterday. I feel
No, you're good.
I really need the male feminists also to respond because
Why didn't I get 'em?
they've spoken 20%. Once they're done with their talk, feel free to interrupt, but let them finish the sentence.
Okay, I want to talk. I'm gonna talk. I mean, I do think men are falling behind. I feel like the world is just changing in a way where men don't have like a natural place, or it's not as intuitive as it used to be. And I think men are alone. I heard you throw out the word loneliness, and that does feel true. I just don't think that feminism did that. I just think like the world's changing.
What you said really resonated with me when we define falling behind. What I think about with men is that high suicide rate, that likeliness and proclivity towards violence and aggression. I think about
Ow.
loneliness and not being in relationships with which young men are struggling with a lot right now. And where I feel finding common ground and
No,
feminism
no.
does get right in a sense is that we should
Come
expand
on, get him,
our
get him, get him.
horizons as far as how we view masculinity. Men should be able to cry, they should be able to be vulnerable, and that's something that we need to access. But also, these men who are feeling disillusioned in the world right now, they are seeking out male figures. We've seen, you know,
Fuck, no,
the
no, dodge.
Jordan Petersons or some of the personalities at the Daily Wire or the Andrew Tates. They are seeking out somebody who's telling them, I want you to access those masculine traits and harness them in a way. I would say Jordan Peterson's probably a more healthy role model for men than, say, an Andrew Tate. But men are
Oh
going
my
towards
God.
these more aggressive,
No.
masculinized traits and seeking out men that are trying to harness that for them.
Yeah.
I thought you made a really great point that I totally agree with, where men are looking for these role models of how to embody masculinity because we are falling behind and a lot of people don't know how to act. What's really important
Titties
and
are
what I've
huge.
seen, at least in my experience, like feminism bring up is the idea of like Justin Baldoni doing his talk about being man enough for your woman, being man enough to be emotional, being man enough to support children. That's the type of manliness and masculinity I think needs to be embodied so that men can catch up and feel like there's a place for them. That's something that we need to focus on, is making sure that people know how to embody masculinity in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone.
I hate this. For me.
Women should also be drafted into the
I don't
military.
fucking care, to be honest with you. So, over here. Here we go. This is what I wanted to actually say.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not.
Bro, why'd they make this like Hans Zimmer
Hey Hassan, we know you're going to react to this video, so we want to invite you to be in an episode of Middle Ground. Maybe a one-on-one discussion with someone like Ben Shapiro. So it'll be great if you can announce your participation here first. And we can get Ben's attention. For now, enjoy the video.
It's not a picture-in-picture though. What the fuck is it? What the fuck is it?
It sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to introduce all ways of life.
Yes.
So would it be okay to include a book with a man having a relationship with a 12-year-old in that book? I know
See,
it's extreme.
that's- no.
Hold on, but just
No,
hear me out.
Because now
Hear
you're
me out.
equipping gay people to pedophiles.
No, this is why I'm bringing
Okay,
it up.
I
Is
can't.
who establishes the boundary.
The law.
But
Why can't I see it?
Teachers have their own political agendas. Step forward if you agree.
Bro, why'd they make this like Hans Zimmer Bro, why'd they make this like Hans Zimmer
Hey Hassan, we know you're going to react to this video, so we want to invite you to be in an episode of Middle Ground. Maybe a one-on-one discussion with someone like Ben Shapiro. So it'll be great if you can announce your participation here first, and we can get Ben's attention. For now, enjoy the video.
it sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to introduce all ways of life.
Yes.
So would it be okay to include a book with a man having a relationship with a 12-year-old in that book? I know
See,
it's extreme.
that's- no.
Hold on, but just
No,
hear me
'cause-
out.
'cause now
Hear
you're
me out.
equipping gay people to pedophiles.
No, this is why I'm bringing it up, is who establishes the boundary.
The law.
But
Teachers have their own political agendas.
Whatever.
Step forward if you agree.
I think it's important to recognize that individuals will have political agendas. It's a natural thing, and people should understand their political views. I think where we need to differentiate it is whether a teacher should have a political agenda in a classroom.
But is your idea of a political agenda like these teachers telling students, this is who you should vote for? If you vote for these people, it's wrong. If
Yes,
you vote for
or
these people, it's right.
ridiculing the beliefs that they may have for political or religious reasons, and
I-
using their position of authority
Uh-oh.
to mold the minds of everyone else.
When it comes to diversity or these new sort of terms, I am not for certain types of what so-called diversity when it comes to these new kind of topics. And
Could you expand upon that? Like, what do you think
like
shouldn't be
critical
included?
race theory or some of the gender ideologies. It's not diverse if you're the teacher, the person of authority in the classroom, and you are saying this is how something should be.
Yeah, so I come from an elementary perspective. I'm a first grade teacher, so the conversations we're having in class isn't about the socioeconomic nature of the world. But, we do talk about just what it looks like for different people in different communities. So when I talk about a political agenda, the agenda that I have in the classroom is to create an environment where folks are able to, better understand from wherever someone's coming from.
The problem with that, and I understand the sentiment as a teacher, if a child is sitting there and they happen to be black and you're saying, well, black people such and such and such. I mean, you're really, that's
Yeah,
not
I
okay.
do have to stop you there because that's not really said. It's not said black people do this.
Well,
it's not said
it's just an
Mexicans do this. Again, it's trying to understand from multiple perspectives. That's not saying that every group aligns on the same thought. That's not saying every group is a monolith. What it's saying is, even if you disagree with somebody or you come from a different tradition or a different cultural background, those people's opinions can still be valid.
And the disagree, step forward.
What is
I
a
need to brace off this
cockapoo?
boy.
Well, you're probably asking yourself that. I mean, we're sweet, sociable, small, silent.
How can I get this to be?
I'm gonna be
picture in
honest,
picture?
as a teacher, especially after COVID and all of that, I don't have time for a political agenda. I'm here trying to catch up with curriculum, pick up my readers that are, 2, 3 grade levels behind. I do not have time for that. I teach social emotional skills and all of that, but I'm not here to kind of, you need to believe this, and that. No. If you're a good person, we're good. We're gravy. All good. You know what I mean?
But your definition, and sometimes this can happen if it becomes political, is what is your definition of a good person? Would you think that I'm a good person because I'm raising my kids to be with Judeo-Christian values and they live in a heteronormative home where we talk about how divorce is wrong, cheating is wrong. We have friends of the LGBT community, but we teach our children that from a biblical perspective, that's not okay. Your definition of whether or not they are good could be very different than my definition of whether or not they are good.
To kind of clarify, in my classroom, if they're kind and they're not bashing anybody, judging anybody, kind of throwing out names, anything like that, they're good. It's not to say that topics like that don't come up in class. And I do open it up to discussion. I just keep it clear that this is a safe space. We don't judge each other. We're not going to bash each other. I understand you have your own experiences, but we're not going to come in with an agenda you can say. And I feel like this idea of parents and their teachers of their political biases and all of this is just all of this fear that is clouding their judgment, clouding.
Except we have numerous, not just.
We have experiences.
Yeah, my own child, first week of school, what pronouns she wanted to go by. I mean, not what's your favorite subject, how can I help you succeed academically.
Who's to say that wasn't a part of the questions too, And I understand that question could stand out.
So maybe you don't understand that you're teaching politics.
But that's not politics. That's just like basic respect.
I think that's beautiful.
But it's not to me.
That's beautiful.
Not to me.
So I think you need your idea that that's basic respect. What is the framework of that? Because I think that many teachers are going through these trainings, and the trainings are saying this is the framework of how we operate in the classroom. But where did that idea come from?
Because it's based off. It's called a thing called data.
Did you
so
do that?
No, hold on. A lot of schools have research and development, and so the state also does. So in the state of California, we do research. So at the end of the day, my job is not just to make your kid to feel comfortable. I got 55 students. I got to make 55 students feel comfortable. And so when your kid comes home and tells you, well, Mom, the teacher said, what's my pronouns? Yeah, I did say, what's your pronoun? I also said, what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite food? I am a college professor now. I was previously a 3rd, 4th grade teacher. Teaching 3rd and 4th grade was horrible. Dealing with parents who thought their child was special and should be treated a certain way. It just wasn't doable. The constant complaining, the accusing people of doing things that are not going on in our classes, not being enough for their child, it was just too much. When parents don't have the knowledge of what goes on inside of a school, I think it's important for those parents to go to the school, and we as educators like our parents to be involved. Again, I have too many students to push an agenda. I do my job.
That makes a really good point, actually.
Discussion about sexuality doesn't belong in schools.
After a certain grade, but no, it doesn't really.
I had a sex ed class when I was in 3rd grade, and it was quite simple. Boys go in this room, girls go in this room, they play a little video on a black and white TV. You see the genitalia, and you're like, oh God, I got one of those, cool. Now we're figuring out what I am. The fear is these schools have no boundaries. If they do the classroom thing where they want to split kids up, how many genders are we going to do this? We're going to put boys, them, and then girls, and then how many rooms do we need to create for equality? Or are we really chasing equity? And I think parents now are beginning to realize we've got to stop this and create framework about sexuality, especially in a hyper-sexualized culture. My kids don't need to know at 6, 7, and 8 years old about different types of sexual acts. That's not appropriate.
People think that this is just kind of happening, it's a one-off. It is in so many schools. Where I live in Florida, there was a poster going around where kids could text anonymous strangers to get information about sex. And on this poster in school, want to get laid?
Wow.
I mean, it's beyond, and there is a push for pleasure-based sex. Pleasure for who?
My oldest is 9 years old. She's in 3rd grade, and she's been exposed to things, and we do have conversations about it. But that's a conversation that I should be having with my 9-year-old daughter. If a 6th grader or a 4th grader is going to be prompted by a teacher, hey, what are your pronouns? as a parent, I should have a heads up about that because they're not even going to understand the question. And so I think that the idea that those conversations are started in the classroom instead of in the home is a big problem. I have a family member who first day of 6th grade was asked for her pronouns, and she stood up and said that as a person of faith, she believed that God didn't make a mistake making her a girl, and so therefore she identified as a she, her, and she was sent to the principal's office and punished for that decision. Thankfully, we haven't seen that broadly yet, but I think it's really damaging to take a shy, innocent 11-year-old child and make them stand in front of a classroom and determine something that they maybe haven't even put that much thought into.
Let me do this.
I like what you said, Sean, about how you were emphasizing, how a lot of parents today felt a goodness of the way that sexual education was conducted in the past. So there is an agreement that sexuality should be talked about in schools. The disagreement is whether it should just be purely heteronormative or if we should include all aspects of sexuality. I don't think that we're doing demonstrations to encourage children how to have
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords. These.
Because I think that many teachers are going through these trainings.
No, hold on. A lot of schools have research and development. And so the state often complains.
Realize.
Gay if you've never slept with a guy? How do you really know that you want to be in a monogamous relationship if you don't sleep around? And when you start to introduce those questions to children, specifically prepubescent ones, they're going to naturally be curious, and their emotional and hormonal maturity is not there to be making those types of decisions that have lifelong impact.
Well, you're right, and a lot of them are learning at home because just like you guys are saying, they come home to tell you things. Well, guess what? Those same kids come to school and talk about what you're telling them at home. You'll be surprised what I hear from students when I do a "What do you think?" Well, let me tell you what my mama and daddy did. And look, I don't have time. Your kid is not that important to me. Not to be rude, I got like 300 students. Your kid is no more important than the other 299. So I don't have time to sit up here and let me get you to think like me. I can't get my own 23-year-old to think like me. At the end of the day, what needs to happen, and this is just my own personal take, parents need to start being parents because a lot of times the teachers are the parents. They're parenting your kids because absentee parenting.
I think that this conversation is really interesting, and I think we need to step back and look at why we automatically assume that if we're telling our children about lesbians, gay people, queer people, why do we immediately equivocate that to telling them about what sex is? That can just be something as simple as, here is a book. In this book, there are 2 dads. This book character has 2 dads. And kids, they can be inquisitive, and that's good, right? But also, they're gonna be like, cool, there's 2 dads.
All these kids know that there's a dad and a dad and a mom and a mom, and the culture is teaching all of that. So what we've noticed is that the curriculum in 8th grade and up, it's a lot deeper than that. It's more like, here is how you can have sex so you do not get pregnant.
Yeah.
Illustration of anal sex. That is the stuff that we're now reacting against. And that, sadly, is the trust that's being broken between teachers and parents.
Yeah, and I think we're moving into a conversation about comprehensive sex ed. What I am talking about is when I go into this classroom and I'm teaching kids, I'm not going to just teach kids material that is heteronormative.
Out of curiosity, it sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to introduce all ways of life. Like these are the people that you will encounter with throughout life.
That is what I'm arguing, yes.
So would it be okay to include a book with a man having a relationship with a 12-year-old in that book? I know it's extreme.
No.
Hold on, but just hear me out.
Because now you're equivocating gay people to pedophiles.
No, I'm not.
And no, that's not okay.
No, you're drawing a line that I'm not drawing.
And you're definitely crossing the line.
I agree. I agree. And this is why I'm bringing it up. Is who establishes the boundary?
The law.
But what law? The law is
But the law that's been signed in in some
No,
states.
I'm sorry. No, there's laws between adults having sex with children. Now, if a student had 2 parents who happen to be of the same sex, I'm not going to sit there and discount who they are in my class. I cannot do that. I sign a contract.
I would never ask anybody to uplift or suppress any child. I want there to be equality in the classroom. What I am saying is that there are factual instances where this is being taught in classrooms. I pulled my children out of public school because there are so many instances of this happening. I am a parent. I'm looking in the book bag every day. I'm checking in with homework. I am talking to the teachers and the principals, and I'm involved. But we didn't know that, you know, during class, there were images shown of literal sex acts or describing certain situations that were inappropriate for young children.
We have a belief system at home, and the children want to break the boundaries of that belief system naturally because we're human beings. That's just what we do. And we're trying to confine them to a set of beliefs to say, this is what is right in our home. And we're seeing the schools get funding from Planned Parenthood. They tried to pass a bill to put medical facilities to offer abortions in high schools here in California. And it's gradual, right? It starts with, this is a book that has 2 dads. This is a book with 2 moms. And it's just a gradual curiosity that could leverage and break away that child from the root in the home. My education growing up was fully public education. College is where I started getting a curiosity for truth and education. And I think I'm so passionate about the education system today because it is obviously broken, but how do we fix it? Many of these progressive ideas in fixing it is just more empathy, sympathy, safety. But in reality, I see the public school system isn't actually accomplishing the goal of what education is, which is teaching critical thinking, how to understand, how to ask good questions, and then comprehend how to problem solve.
Oh shit, my wings.
Action is racial discrimination.
What was the question?
There was a high school down the street from where I live in Los Angeles that encouraged all the kids of color to
gradual curiosity that could leverage truth and education. I see the public school system.
Affirmative action is racial discrimination.
Affirmative action versus discrimination? I think it is.
There was a high school down the street from where I live in Los Angeles that encouraged all the kids of color to apply for their school play. And only once all the kids of color received whatever positions they wanted, then the white kids could apply. That, in my opinion, is an example of discrimination. The fact that we now have Harvard has black-only kids' dorms, that to me is segregation.
With affirmative action, we've seen with Harvard lawsuits and other things how it's backfiring, and it's picking and choosing of which minorities can and cannot have success. It was done to try to create or make up for the wrongs of our past, but I think it's really backfired.
Yeah, it's really, excluding those excelling students in other races to fix the problems of the past, like you said. But I think the past, there were a lot of minorities that were excelling and doing really well.
Despite the foot of the government, and kudos to them.
Yes.
Incredible, strong human beings. And we shouldn't have that discrimination in any way anymore, but unfortunately it has become a discrimination against other groups.
Yeah, it's racism. It is racism. If you are taking a group of people and judging them on their race and setting them aside, giving them a special treatment, if you are uplifting a person or you are trying to suppress a person because of their race, that is racism. And so we're supposed to believe that someone like Barack Obama's children are like struggling because they're black? Like, that's ridiculous. So I pulled my oldest daughter out a public school in Florida. We were having debates about pulling down statues and changing names, and some of the school board members and some of the activist groups were saying that black children could not learn because of names on buildings, and that is completely asinine to me. It basically says that because we have a higher level of melanin, somehow our brains don't work. Every other kid could walk into the building and get the education that they needed, but somehow not for you black children. And I found that to be just disgusting. And I did not want my children to have any type of idea coming from authority figures who believed in such things like that.
First of all, I would like to say that affirmative action programs, the biggest beneficiary according to the data, and this has been government data, has been white women first and foremost. Second of all, I would never use Barack Obama's kids as a barometer for anything because they do have privilege as well as Will Smith kids. But if we talk about Laquan Smith down the street that nobody knows, there will be some impediments based on his race. Yeah.
Why? How do you know that?
Because people do tend to look and see race. What you were talking about is just racism, but when it's institutional and structural, it does something totally different. And when the black wealth gap is 100 years behind the white wealth gap in America, it'll take 100 years to catch up.
Why do you think that's because of racism, though? You take one thing and say that is the cause for every person of color.
The data
What data? What data is saying that black people are behind? Because there are many black people that aren't behind, that are doing much better than other people.
No, you're absolutely right. And there are outliers in every single community. There are very strong, members of the black community that are very affluent. There are also a majority that live in poverty. And if we see a bunch of cities that are majority person of color, and we're trying to recognize why have these places stayed at a very stable poverty line? But there are systemic reasons to why these communities are like that. How would you say that?
I would say probably because of policies that are in those cities.
Racist policies, absolutely.
Hold on, we got to define terms. When would you say that Watts and Compton became the way that it is? Was it like that in the 40s and 50s?
No, it's a growth.
No, I'm asking you.
From redlining policies that were enabled.
In California?
Yeah, absolutely. California put in racist policies. I would never deny that.
All of these supposed solutions are actually hurting. Wouldn't a better solution be to teach our kids that we're all born in the image of God? We should all treat one another equally. And if you don't believe in God, then we're all equal, right? If you come from a poor neighborhood, whether you're black or Hispanic or an immigrant from anywhere, obviously you don't have the same privileges that somebody who comes from a wealthy community, but that has nothing to do with your color. I don't think that if you're an impoverished black kid or you're an impoverished white kid, one should receive a resource and the other shouldn't.
Would you say that it's economic then is the reason that causes these disparities?
Economic, but I don't think it's related to color.
But would you say if there's a majority of a particular group that lies underneath the poverty line in economic, race has anything to do with that?
It could, but it's just not blanket. You don't know. And why don't we look at the families, the black families, who have done those amazing things in this country and study what they did to succeed instead of just focusing on, oh, well, black people are behind and we don't even know what to do. Well, why don't we just go and look? Since you are a professor, wouldn't that be, you go and look at what has worked?
Well, I would never just go to you and just look at you. And I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the data. And so what I share...
Data can be broken up in umpteen different ways.
No, it can't.
Yes, it can.
Actually,
you're a professor and you're saying that data cannot be manipulated? This is why my kids do not go to public school anymore.
I don't, and I'm glad they don't.
I just think it's interesting. I'm thinking of like an anecdotal story I have. Last year, the school that I taught at, Deep East Oakland, I served majority black and brown students. Over 70% of our families under the poverty line. These are some of the hardest working people I have ever seen in my life. They get up, they have 2 or 3 jobs, 3 or 4 children.
I would argue
because of their economic status, right?
Because of liberal policies that is the government telling them that they can and cannot succeed, because of how high our property taxes are here, because we do not have school choice where they can take their dollars somewhere else. If you put those same families in redder districts in the country, like places in Florida and Texas or Virginia, where they have better options for their family, you would definitely see them be able to succeed.
And where black and brown children are still underperforming in schools?
But coming from Florida, the school that I was at, it's graded from like A to like D, F. When I started there, it was a C school. Very poor performing. And technically, sure, they have school choice. They don't have state tests anymore.
What the fuck?
But they're still so badly performing. The community of it, black, brown, very little white students in that community. But not to say that student of color can't be more affluent, but I think it's ridiculous to kind of say that color doesn't play a part into disparities and just disadvantages. So in Florida, a lot of people that I had encountered weren't kind to others, and sometimes I would have coworkers call students retarded and using racist slurs and things like that. And from my standpoint, hearing something like that, it disgusted me. My coworkers very quickly were able to kind of distinguish me from the rest. Like, if I was gonna come to the teacher's lounge, more hushed conversation, people wouldn't share as much as they used to, just because I would call out behavior like that.
You know what? I'm gonna disagree.
So I was really in between. I didn't really know how I felt about this issue at first.
What was the issue?
But then I started looking at places that had armed their teachers. So I believe that model is good. It has to be voluntary.
Yes.
So the teachers have to want to do it themselves. They have to be well trained.
Yes.
They have to have background checks periodically. That has been successful.
If we're trusting teachers, which in some cases we do, in some cases we don't, but if my mindset is that if we're gonna trust teachers to mold our children's minds and educate them, they're there for 8 hours a day. We should also trust and kind of enable them to protect themselves and our kids physically.
I think by no means should we ever force a teacher to carry a gun, but if a teacher is willing to take on the responsibility of learning how to handle a weapon properly, I think that we should allow them to do that for us, and it frankly would be an incredible service to us.
Now we're home. We specialize in happy homecomings and sending thousands of patients home every day, one hug at a time. UC Health. Live extraordinary.
All right, so just to break it open, this conversation is so much more nuanced than to arm or not to arm. And if you want to save a school, you need to get parental engagement. Let's look at the mindset of the individuals that are going into these homes with firearms. Those individuals are not mentally okay. There's something wrong happening, whether it's at school, in the house, whether it's, who knows, maybe it's something they're consuming online. And I think that's the parents' job to continue to engage to make sure that child is healthy. A lot of these kids, as well, that are going into schools that are not mentally healthy, they're coming from single-parent households. They're living with their grandparents. There's something intrinsically with their identity that's broken. And I think that whether you arm a school or you don't, it's not going to change it if you don't address the real issue.
I agree with you that people that are, perpetrating these crimes and these mass casualties are messed up individuals. I would absolutely agree. Mass shootings are a uniquely American problem. So if we try to understand what's the root, why does America solely have that problem, I would say it's a gun culture problem. So if the idea is, should we try to remove aspects of gun culture that really pervade in our society, should we do that, or should we just increase the amount of firearms we can have in every single space, just so that way we're properly ready for a gunfight whenever
I want
it
to
comes
clarify
up.
gun culture. Are you saying that there's like the shoot 'em up, bang 'em up video games? Or are you saying
No, I wouldn't say it's video games. I'd say institutions like the NRA that heavily impose, you need to own not just firearms, but as many firearms as you can. I personally would not like to be armed. I do not want to take lethal action in the classroom, and I want to make it a safe and inclusive environment. Arming teachers is a response measure to particular violence that goes on in our schools here in America. And personally, I think we should focus more towards solutions to prevent these occurrences from happening rather than just implementing responses implying that these actions will occur.
And I'm just going to be honest with you, you don't want me to have a gun because I had to go back to therapy in the last few months. And so I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, what your plan was. But I would also say mental health. We got to understand some of these school shootings are done because people have snapped.
People have natural biases and things like that, and people could act on those biases.
All right, Guy.
Then they could
Stay
be
alive.
guns drawn and not a clear mind.
Counting on you.
You know, as a parent, how would you feel knowing that you don't know which teachers have a gun and you've had bad experiences with prior teachers? What if that teacher that absolutely, you know,
So
blown up
my
kind of thing?
answer to your question is I feel the same way about the guard in front of my kid's school. I don't really know the guard, but he's gone through training, and I presume that he knows what he's doing. And frankly, I feel the same way about a police officer. I don't need the police officer, but they've gone through training and they were willing to take on that responsibility. And so I would apply the same logic. It's so interesting that you bring that up because it really ties back to why I feel like we need to be careful about how much responsibility we're saddling teachers with teaching our kids values, right? On the one hand, the system is saying, trust our teachers, they know better than you parents. We should be able to teach them what they need to know about sexuality. On the other hand, you guys are admitting that many teachers are not really checked for mental issues. We don't really know what is happening in these classrooms.
I'm not
we
saying
don't
that
know about
teachers
what
are not
friction.
checked. We very frequently have like professional development days where we got self-care. So I wouldn't say many by any means. And when I'm coming into the workplace, I'm not bringing in all my baggage. As to say, you know, you go into your work, you're not like, oh, I'm so depressed, my kid's this,
So
that.
why, if there is a teacher who is willing to step forward and will go through the training and will go through the screening, why not empower them to save our kids? I mean, in Uvalde, if there was a teacher who could actually save those children, then maybe we would not have seen so much death.
When we place teachers with a firearm in the classroom, it takes the instance of a violent occurrence from a possibility in the minds of these children to an inevitability.
But the children don't know. It is a concealed and carry weapon. That has gone through the process of the local sheriff's department, background check, training, checkups,
no one knows
everything.
But the teacher
no one knows.
and the police
I have a
department.
logistical question.
Yeah.
Does this teacher have the gun on them?
Yes.
You wouldn't
It is
know.
holstered on them?
At all times.
It's a concealed carry.
It should never be in a place of a
Concealed
child.
carry. It's illegal
No,
to
I know what a
brandish.
concealed carry
I
is,
just want to clarify.
but my thing and why this question sort of enrages me. Why are we asking teachers to carry guns? When did this become an occupational hazard? When did we walk into school and people were like, by the way, you could be shot today, so maybe you want to have your gloves strapped on you because who knows, this might be your last day on earth. That's ridiculous. If you 50 years ago were to look at a teacher and be like, hey, you want to hold this gun with you? You know, like you might need it. They're going to scratch their heads and look at you. This is opening up a bigger conversation, right? But I think that even though it is voluntary, right, we still need to have this conversation. Like it still needs to happen of why, even if a teacher was willing to carry a gun to school, they are even having to be asked to do that in the first place.
Teachers are not paid enough.
Everybody should walk up for that. Damn, except for that. I know I'm there, Mike.
Every day I wake up and I hand to you guys the most precious thing in my entire life, my children. I think that it's important that our society will reflect how much we value you guys. I think that you should receive bonuses if you do a great job. If you're able to represent all of us as Americans, both conservatives and liberals, and you're able to speak on our behalf and take care of our children, we should reward you for that, and you should feel rewarded for that. And so I don't know exactly what you make, but I think it is really important that we invest in you and we pour into you. And when I see the entire budget that the state of California, for example, spends on education, and I realize that a sliver fraction of it only goes to you guys, it breaks my heart, and frankly, it makes me so angry. I don't need more bureaucrats. I need more good teachers.
I left the K through 12 and went to the community college, and I do pretty well. I'm going to be clear with that. But also, I have a master's.
So you're not oppressed. Thank
so
God.
I have a master's, but I had to work really hard to get where I'm at. But I'm also in a doctoral program, and you're right. I'm paying out of pocket too. Again, I had a student the other day saying, "I can't pay my electric bill. How much is your electric bill? I'll pay your electric bill." And so I put up students in hotels because they have nowhere to live. I have a student who doesn't have a family. He told me the other day, I need a dad. I said, I'll be your father, because it just broke my heart that a 19-year-old is in this world alone, doesn't have family.
I would be scared to calculate how much I spent for my classroom, right? Like all the materials, all the things that I'm purchasing, all the things that I'm doing. And it's just interesting to think that we are always told, teachers are heroes, they're teaching the youth of America, but also we're not gonna give you enough money to survive comfortably. You're gonna struggle every day. There have been days when I go to work and I'm like, am I gonna have money to put gas in my car? I guess we're gonna find out, right? And I know so many other teachers who are struggling to keep afloat. I can't even imagine can't even think about having a family as a teacher. I think that growing up, I was not the strongest student. I didn't necessarily see the point in what we were doing. And I think that ultimately that felt like it was because education was something that I had to get through, not necessarily something that I was obtaining. But I think what really pushed me to go into teaching was wanting to give kids a space where they didn't feel the way I feel growing up, where they felt like they had power to make choice in their education, and that their education could be powerful in aiding them to do what they wanted to do.
So I'm not a teacher. I don't know how much you guys make. And I'm not going to use you as the example. I'm going to use a friend of mine. She's been at a school for a number of years. I want to say it's 6, 7, 8 years, and she's become tenured. And through her tenureship, she's accumulated so much wealth. I'm appalled at how much she's making because she teaches Spanish to 6th graders, and she's making over $150,000 a year.
Can I ask you a question? What kind of school does she work at?
Public school?
Interesting.
Yeah. And
how much experience goes on with that too?
It must, I'm assuming, because you've invested into your career, which I think everybody should. But for me, I look at it as you're making $150,000 in 9 months.
The prompt very clearly was, are teachers paid enough?
Yes.
And I mean, we're not. I've had to work second jobs doing DoorDash just because I wasn't making enough. If you look at these shoes, they are ripped, they are broken. From a teacher wish list, I could not even buy these shoes myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't make enough money.
So I wanted to clarify, this isn't an absolute. I'm not saying that every teacher is paid enough. I have no idea what your salary is. I have no idea any of those details. I'm just recognizing that if a teacher is getting 9 months and their salary is in 9 months, they get a summer off. Most of society isn't given 3 months to just
That's
go
assuming they have 3 months. I'm an 11-month employee. For 1 whole month out of the year, I'm not paid anything. Nothing. I have to figure out my funds, save money that I don't have to try to supply for a month and a half. I don't get supplementary income. That doesn't happen.
No! What? We'll get close anyway.
Well, I'll go first. My daughter, same teacher actually, who was asking about her pronouns. She said that she was going to be introducing some race-themed books. My daughter recorded this conversation in class. So what proceeded to happen is she started to talk to the children in their, I guess, identity groups. Oh, as an African-American child, how are you discriminated against? As an Asian child, she went through all of, except white people. It became total chaos in the classroom. There was no education going on here. They were just literally going at each other, talking about who was more oppressed. It's not a matter of if something was racist, it's a matter of when something was racist or how the racist thing happened. So they automatically assume, critical race theorists, that racism is embedded into every single thing. How do you look a child, specifically a black child, in the eye and tell them, I'm sorry for you because of your skin color? There's no hope for you in the greatest country, literally through them, because black Americans are the most successful black people in the entire world. And then turn around and look at a white child and say, sorry, you're responsible for the atrocities of 200 years ago.
All I add to that is that in our home and with our faith, I teach my children that it is awful to make someone feel hopeless or pitied. You're damning them to a future of failure if you are telling them, oh, I pity you and I'm going to do these things for you, instead of coming alongside them and supporting them and doing something for themselves that pulls them out of that hopelessness. And I think that those are two of the worst things that we can do as a broader society.
You know what I love about America? My mother immigrated from Morocco. She's a Jewish person. Everywhere around the world, we're known as the Jew. In America, we're known as American. And I think there's something so powerful about empowering any community to be American and to succeed based on your own merit. We don't look back into why we can't. We look into why we can. And so when my family taught me since I was a little girl, I can, I learned that I could. And that's why I think this country has empowered me so much. I want to see the same thing for kids of all colors in the United States. But if we're teaching them that there is no hope for them and that people will always look at them in a different way, then how are they going to hear the message of I can? My question for liberal teachers is, do they think that it's the right place for them to impose liberal ideas in classrooms, knowing that they have many students who come from conservative families? And I find that many of the schools have become battlegrounds for those kinds of ideas. And when teachers are bringing those issues to the classrooms, it's forcing families and conservative kids to have to address these issues. And we believe that they're simply too young to deal with those kinds of complex matters at that age.
Okay, so first of all, I think we need to define what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is a theory that Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw and a bunch of former Harvard law students came up with, where they theorize that within certain American laws, racism is just embedded. And so I'm sorry for your experience, because you shouldn't have to go through that. Nobody should have to go through that. I don't tell my son you can't do anything. I have told my son you have to work twice as hard. I have to tell my son you're a black man in America. There's certain things you need to do to survive.
I mean, first, I think the idea that we are teaching children critical race theory in schools is ridiculous. As he pointed out, this is a high level, like university level framework. You are not gonna walk into like Isabel's elementary school 5th grade classroom and see Isabel telling these people about the legal structures. In my opinion, how I define myself as an American, right? I define myself as someone who is proud of my country, someone who can look at the mistakes that my country has made in the past and the things that are keeping other people oppressed and recognize that these are still existing and that we need to work towards changing that. So I don't see how critical race theory could be anti-American, because that's how I define American. And I think it's very nuanced because people define American in many different ways,
I actually
right?
don't completely disagree with your definition of it. I think that maybe you think it's systemic and I think it's the individual. But I think that even in nuanced ways, like the example that she gave, I've heard examples where my nieces have been segregated in the classroom at 4th and 5th grade. And like, well, did this happen to you? Do you have a 2-parent home? Are your grandparents raising you? And like, there's this line of victimhood. And as a woman that has dealt with sexism, I do definitely teach my daughters, like as a girl in this country, it is going to be a different experience than your father had. But I don't think it's beneficial at all to kind of institute that victimhood in their long-term mentality, because then you actually start to see kids that are like, oh, well, they're different than me, so therefore their life could be better or worse than mine. And instead of engaging with those people, they step away.
I don't believe that there's a victimhood to it. I think it's just kind of amplifying that, hey, this is the truth, this is what happened, and let's move forward with that. Having that knowledge to be able to kind of navigate through life is better than just, oh, well, I assume I'm the same as, you know, my white counterpart. Oh, why is she able to do this? Why does she have this opportunity that I don't have?
But they are the same.
But she has that opportunity.
They are the same, is what we're saying.
I think what the difference is, we're stating normative statements, and you guys are claiming that we're presenting prescriptive claims. So the normative statement that we're presenting is, these events happen in American history. These are the outcomes that have led from those events. What you guys are saying is, we're then adding prescriptive statements, which is, that's why you should never really try, because you'll never make it in this country.
That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you negatively press a child with these thoughts, that will be the outcome, because that's how human beings work. This is a psychological fact.
The quality of education is the government's job.
You bitch! Fuck. I can't do this.
I believe it is the government's job. But look, our funding comes through government.